Okay, so this video really is just going to talk about some of the really cheap, really common, easy to find games for the Saturn. Now, the Saturn is quite expensive to collect for. It's just one of those things. Yeah, there are people who on eBay drive up the price, try and make just basically trying to make a buck. Not an honest buck, just driving up the price, thinking that some honest person's going to come along and get, they're going to take them for a ride basically. But having said that, generally a lot of once you start getting into the Saturn, a lot of the games are quite dear. Not always, because you get some seller trying to pull a fast one, but some of the games just generally are dear. I'd say on average, you're looking, for most of them, not all of them, but most of them, you're probably looking between the 10 and 20 quid mark. Obviously there are games that fit underneath that and over that, of course, but I'd say just in general, a lot of the decent games as you get into the system will cost between that mark. But it's just knowing what to look out for, and generally, what should be the normal average prices of games, and as you get into the system, that should come naturally as you keep looking at the games. I know it's a bit harder if you're just getting into the system now, because obviously retro gaming has taken off really big, and there's a lot more people out there now trying to unnecessarily drive up the prices compared to several years ago or whatever. But yeah, you're just getting into the system, or you've just bought a system, or you're thinking about getting into the system, so you want some really cheap, some of the most common games, and there's actually quite a lot of games you can get for like dirt cheap. I'm talking about literally a couple of quid. You shouldn't really pay any more than a couple of quid for these games. That's how common they are, and that's how cheap they should be. Now, a lot of these games are Sega's very own arcade games, and Sega being the arcade pretty much geniuses that they are, these are the games that I think you should go for when you first get the system. Okay, so first off, there's Virtua Fighter and Virtua Fighter 2. Now, I'm going to say this: I wouldn't actually recommend Virtua Fighter 1, because it's just the worst arcade port you've ever seen. I wouldn't recommend getting that first, because you'll get that and you'll just think, is this what the Saturn is this what the Saturn's 3D is going to be like? And it's not. It's one of the worst examples of 3D on the system. It was a rushed arcade port that was rammed through for a rushed Saturn release, and they screwed it up basically. I mean, it says something about a game when the 32X version comes out later on and just puts the Saturn version, and the Saturn's meant to be a more powerful system, and puts the Saturn version to absolute shame. It's full of bugs, the graphics are horrible. Even for a raw polygon game, they're horrible. The game's just a mess, complete mess. But you can pick it up dirt cheap, so take from that what you will. Now, the Virtua Fighter you want to go for is Virtua Fighter 2. Now, they put everything right with Virtua Fighter 2. It had textured polys, textured backgrounds, really detailed textured characters, and really detailed backgrounds. It run the frame rate compared to the first game is super smooth. It really is, and the game runs so fast. You're playing a game now, a fight can be over within a couple of seconds. It really does move that fast. it's just and a lot of game modes as well. So it's the version to get a Virtual Fighter. There's also 2 other 3D fighting games I'd recommend, which is Last Bronx and Fighting Vipers. I have to say, these are really 2 great 3D fighting games, but I think I prefer Fighting Vipers, to be honest with you. That's just my personal preference. Now, these 2 games, I wouldn't say they're going to absolutely blow you away, but they're, as 3D fighting games, they really are really good. To me, the best 3D fighting game, and another game that should be really cheap to pick up, is Fighters Mega Mix. Now, Fighters Mega Mix is basically it takes fighting. It takes Fighting Vipers and Virtual Fighter and slams the 2 games together, and that's what you get. You get the Virtual Fighter and Fighting Vipers like fighting styles, and you also get like 32 characters from various, like, loads of different games. Plus there's tons of game modes and unlockables, and basically it's just an amazing 3D fighting game. It really is. It's the most accomplished 3D fighting game on the Saturn. There's so many game modes, the graphics are just awesome, the sound's awesome, the gameplay is spot on. Like I said, you've got 2 different fighting styles in there, plus all the characters, the unlockables, the frame rate is top notch. It's the most all-rounded, best 3D fighting game on the Saturn, and I'd highly recommend going for Fighters Mega Mix. If there's one game you really have to get for the Sega Saturn, it's Sega Rally Championship. It is probably one of the best arcade ports on the system. It says a lot for a game when you can buy it so cheap today, and it's, you know, one of the best on the system, and that the game is just so playable today. It's just the controls, the gameplay, the graphics are just so perfect that there's just, you just wouldn't want to change, and there's nothing you can change or improve about any of those aspects. The controls are spot on, and it's funny as well because the controls using the D-pad, unless you're using the 3D analog pad, but yeah, if you're using the D-pad, I mean, it's just absolutely spot on, perfect, and it says a lot about the game. When the controls are so perfect on the D-pad, and you know, you get modern racing games today just absolutely shoddy in terms of you know, controls, and they're using analog sticks. As well, the game puts a lot of modern racers to shame, to be honest. It's just perfect. Just one thing about the Saturn is that it truly it was the first system to really give gamers proper arcade perfect ports. You really couldn't. I mean, you got arcade games in the 16-bit era and before, but this was the system where you could truly say arcade perfect. Obviously not all the games were arcade perfect, but it's the first system to deliver that. And Sega Rally Championship is definitely the game to go for, really, and it is absolutely dirt cheap. It's so common, it's unbelievable. The only downside to Sega Rally, and this is the only thing, is that it's very, very light on features. You know, you've got time trial, and you've got like another mode which is, it says it's championship mode, but all it is you race through all 3 tracks against like other cars. But instead of trying to get a first place on each track, you have to get first place over all 3 tracks, and you're racing against the clock as well. So, and that is it. That is it is bare bones when it comes to game modes. That is the only thing really, but it is cheap as chips, it really is. Another game is the Sega Ages collection, and that's got Afterburner, Outrun and Space Harrier. I've played all three games, but the one that I played the most is Afterburner, and when I've got the Saturn switched to 68, it really is blisteringly fast. It is the best version of Afterburner that I've ever played. It is lightning fast, it really is. It's just a brilliant game to play. I have played the other two, but I haven't played them all that much, and there's not a lot you could say about the Ages collection because it is what it is, and just free top games on it really, 16-bit games. Two other games, now I've seen these games vary. Sometimes you can get them dirt cheap, and at other times I've just seen them around the £10 mark. So again, you're either going to get them, you're either going to pay the waiting game here for these two and get them as for a couple of quid, or you're just going to have to suck it up and get them for £10. I managed to get mine for a couple of quid each. So so the first one is Athlete Kings. Now Athlete Kings is basically athletics. So you've got the long jump, the 100 meters, the what do they have in athletics? Pole vault, just all that kind of stuff. It's really good. The graphics are really good. Really good game to actually play with the arcade stick actually. Just a brilliant game. What else can you say about these that kind of game really? It's just athletics, but very much arcade style, and it feels really very much like a pure utter Sega arcade game. I don't really know how to describe it as anything else. Just a brilliant game. It's definitely a button basher, and I'm not sure whether it's one that will break the arcade stick, but I'm sure if you play it enough it probably could. The other one is Winter Heat. Winter Heat is probably the one I would say that would be the hardest to get for a couple of quid, although I did get mine for that much. Like I said, you're either going to pay the waiting game or get it for a couple of quid if you're lucky. Now Winter Heat basically is just the Winter Olympics. So if you think the Winter Olympics, it's just the winter sports games, winter athletic sports games, or you could think of it as the Winter Olympics, I suppose. So you've got all the kind of winter athletics sports type events. So you've got, you know what, I don't even know what most of the things are called on there. So you've got slaloms, downhill slaloms. You've got that one where they go down a massive ice ramp and jump off into the air and see how far they can get, whatever the hell that's called. What else have they got? What's that thing called? That's in God, I'm not explaining this very well, am I? It's that event where that film Cool Runnings with John Candy. Is it the bobsleigh? We've got that in there. Just all the winter events really. Just a brilliant game. It's got the better graphics out of the two games, and just a really good arcade game really. Again, a button basher. Just a brilliant pick up and play game really, and it's definitely one you've got to get. It's definitely one to play with the arcade stick as well.